Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Karla Eli show. As you could see, I do have a new microphone now. Last conversation I had with Lily Daniels, my camera was tilted up, so then the microphone was tilted up as well. So hopefully with this new microphone, you ladies can hear me better. I received your comments on Karla. Please better your audio for those who just listen on Spotify. So I am doing my very best to find solutions to this, I guess inconvenience or conundrum. I'm not tech savvy, even though I should be at this point because I've been doing this for a while now. But anyways, without further ado, I would love to introduce to you ladies a very special guest. And the first time we met, there was an instant connection. I don't know if it's because she's also Latina like me and she's feisty, she's fiery, she's very opinionated, which I love all of those three traits. But please welcome in Maria Rodriguez. Hello, Maria.
Hi, Carla. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Thank you again for saving your precious time to be here with us today. And this conversation is really going to be about you, what you do, and also to help maybe guide women who are still in self-discovery, who are like, I want to go back to school, but I don't know where to start. And not just that, but for us to really understand what lobbyists are, what goes on behind the scenes. I know we talked about it a little bit the first time we met, in regards to our neighborhoods, why there's more libraries in one neighborhood and there's less libraries or more, if you will, like not bars, but just less opportunities in certain neighborhoods. So I'm really excited to dive in deep. But before we go into my questions, please introduce yourself, add context to who you are, what you do. Take the floor, Maria.
Well, my name is Maria Rodriguez. I'm a vocational rehabilitation counselor. I work for the state of California with Department of Rehabilitation, and in conjunction, I am also a union member. So I'm a member of the AFSCME, which stands for American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. And the work that I do there, I'm the occupational chair representing our vocational counselors throughout the state of California, from the border of Oregon all the way to the border of Mexico. I also have a lot of experience in working with our immigrant community and making sure that we facilitate services to that population. And yeah, I love to be of service within my community and making sure that I share resources to especially our Latino and Hispanic communities, because education is power, and that's one thing that we a lot of the times lack.
Absolutely. And so there was a lot of words that a lot of job titles that you have that I don't really understand. So would you mind breaking it down for me, an average lady who wants to understand what you do a little bit more and what that means for our community? Because I am in California, and a lot of the ladies who listen might not be in the state of California, but we can give them, I guess you could say, like a little bit more light as to what to look for within their own communities to these services, because I'm sure that Tennessee has different services or similar services. Colorado might have different ones, but would you mind breaking down your occupation for us a little bit more for an average woman like me to understand?
Yes, so Department of Rehabilitation, we facilitate services to individuals with disabilities. And in the state of California, that's what it's called. But in the most states, it's called Vocational Rehabilitation Services, which I think that's the better title, because we focus on vocational outcomes, making sure that individuals who have either physical, mental, and or emotional disabilities, regardless of their limitations, that they have the opportunity to be able to go back into the workforce. And so my job as a vocational counselor is to work with our consumers to help them identify vocational goals, whether it's to become a teacher, a plumber, or simply just working at Jack in a Box, for example. My job is to assist them with providing them the resources, the tools, in order for our consumers to be able to reach their employment goal. And the goal of the department is to get these individuals off of social services so that they can gain independence and have a quality of life. Um, as a vocational counselor in the El Monte office. So I'm in Southern California. And for those that are not familiar with our cities, I'm closer to Los Angeles County, where I'm in Los Angeles County, but I service a community specifically in El Monte. And so my caseload consists of predominantly working with high school students, foster youth, and adults that have been formerly incarcerated, into ensuring and transitioning them to employment and gaining employment of any sort. We get different individuals that have different goals, different aspirations, different interests. And so my job is pretty much to help people get jobs.
And so you mentioned several things that qualify, characteristics that qualify an individual to be able to apply for these services. So let's say if you stated mental health, what would qualify someone to receive the resources or the help if the category that they're under is like they need help due to mental health reasons? What would qualify them?
Yes, so here in the state of California, in order for an individual to qualify for Department of Rehabilitation Services, you have to be able to provide medical documentation stating your diagnosis, whether it's schizophrenia, depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety, whatever it is. You have to be able to provide a diagnosis um, by a professional physician, with letting us know that you do have a disability. However, aside from you having a disability, you also have to be able to go to work. So, for example, if you are experiencing severe depression and you're not able to communicate with others, you have an impediment to, because of the medication, an impediment to waking up on time. That's information that we need to know to figure out, okay, do we need to help this individual more, making sure that they're visiting or they're meeting with their therapist, with their psychiatrist? Do we place them in a work setting where they have the ability to work from home or they have the ability to work at night? These are different components that vocational counselors look at, or also identify like this right now, this is not the time for you to be able to um, benefit from our services, because where you're at the level where you're at, you're not able to perform or be an active participant. And the Department of Rehabilitation, it's not a mandated program through the court. It's not, for example, like, you go to the court and then they tell you, oh, you have to complete 8 classes of AA, or you have to complete 10 classes of anger management. This is not nothing like that. This is something that the individual wants to do for their growth. This is something where you've already done the counseling, you've already done all of the therapy. If you have a history of alcohol or substance abuse, you've already done your NA or your AA classes or gone through a program. And now you're ready to make that transition to be an independent individual.
Okay, okay, I understand. I understand. I get it now. And you said that you also focus on or you're able to help immigrants as well, right? With in this, is it the same program as a rehabilitation program or is it something different?
No, and I just have experience in working with the undocumented community. But the work that I do correlates a lot with working with the undocumented community. Many of our parents, they migrated to the United States in hopes of giving us a better lifestyle, giving us the opportunity to education, giving us the opportunity to become professionals, right? And so they come to this country willing to work hard to give us the best that they can in a foreign country. And our jobs as children from immigrant parents is to go to school and to become a professional or get an education. But what families forget is, well, how do we do that? I know for myself, when my mom was telling me, oh, can I speak Spanish on here?
Yes, you can speak
Oh,
Spanish.
like, o te tienes que encontrar a un maestro, a una maestra para que te oriente, a una maestra que te guíe, porque yo no sé nada, yo nomás sé trabajar y yo nomás sé pagar la renta para que tú vayas a la escuela. And it's like, okay, but how do I even do that? Or you have to go to college. You know, I didn't come to this country for you to go work at the callejones. And for those of you that don't know what the callejones mean, here in Los Angeles, we have the Santee alleys where you go buy clothes, you can go buy wigs, you can go pretty much go buy anything at a really cheap price. And so she would tell me, I didn't come here for you to go work at the Santee alleys, right? Like I came here for you to be a professional and be successful in life, and you got to go to college. But it's like, well, how do I even go to college? What do I even do? So I had to figure out, first of all, how to apply for college. And then when I got into college, I had to learn what each department meant. What does financial aid do? What do they do for me? How can they help me? What does the counseling department do for me? Um, what is the what other services are there? What does the Dreamers Resource Center do for me? Why do we even have a healthcare center at a campus? You know, we don't even know that we have access to mental health services while we're attending college. Or why do I have to go to the career center? Right? Like there's all these resources on these campuses and we don't even know what they're there for. A lot of the times we're going to college, we're paying all this money and we don't even access these services that we're paying for. And so my education as a vocational counselor correlates with helping my immigrant community because I get to educate my community and telling them this is how you apply to college. This is how you apply to a UC and to a Cal State. This is how you apply to a private school. This is how you even prepare to even think of applying to a private school. Because if you have just been slacking off during high school, um, trying to be the most popular kid in school, guess what? Don't even think about going to a private school because you don't have the curriculum to even apply for those schools. However, let's learn from your experience and let's start to think about Cal States or a community college or maybe even a trade. A lot of the times I work with some of the youth and they're just like, I don't know, I just want to go to work. Just find me a job. And the first thing that I always tell my students and my coworkers, they laugh, you know, but it's real. I tell them, okay, I'm gonna find you a job and I'm gonna put you to clean toilets 8 hours for 8 hours. Do you want to do that? And they're quickly to say, well, no, I do not want to do that. So it's like I start to elicit like what are their interests, right? And then I start to realize, okay, some of these kids, they've been washing cars. Well, why don't we talk about entrepreneurships? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about starting your own business. That's information that we don't get in our communities, how to start your own business. We're always so quick to encourage our young people go work for someone. When we have all these traits, you know, we grow up seeing our mothers sell tamales, sell tacos. They are already having their own business, you know, and so I start to just encourage our community, like don't even if you don't have papers, even if you don't have a social security number, you can be successful in this country. You can be a successful barber, you can be a successful nail technician, you can be a successful construction worker, a plumber, anything in this world.
Yeah, and I would like to because have had encounters with students who their parents are um illegal immigrants here, and it's hard for them because of that. They're like, I'm going to college, but my mom doesn't really understand. Even though she's telling me to go to school, she doesn't understand that school requires homework after. I can't help her with the house. I can't help her cook. I can't help her do these things. And we'll talk about it a little bit of the machista or machismo, how that's toxic into and how that infiltrates into our culture, specifically Mexican American culture, just Mexican culture in general. But I know that there's a lot of different countries or a lot of different cultures where men are valued more than women, and we end up getting um, like the not the worst treatment, but we end up being everything and we end up doing everything. And then we end up being in relationships where it's like we have the whole responsibility, right? And then we have to learn how to break those cycles down, which is what I mean, it took me a while, but that's why I do what I do in terms of relationships and how to um grab your identity as a woman because of machismo and a lot of these, toxic belief systems that we have ingrained in our culture, it doesn't even allow us to successfully choose a partner that is right for us, that is good for us. And so let's talk about that a little bit more. Um, so in I'll even be honest with you here. I remember when, and hopefully you ladies can relate to this. I remember the first time around that I came to applying for college, I didn't know what I was doing. I was going to be the first one to apply to college to begin with. And it sucks because in FAFSA, you're not considered independent until you're 24. If I would have known that, if I would have known that sooner, I would have not invested as much time in my education in my early 20s. I would have, well, thankfully, I did what I did, which was work a lot and see what I liked, got different internships while going to community college to get my AA. But what stumped me was the fact that my father didn't even want to give me his tax forms. No one was there to really help me to see like, okay, for me to be able to apply to FAFSA, I don't qualify to do anything alone unless I have my father's tax forms. But what happens when your father earns more than 130K, he's earning 300 to 500K, he doesn't want to tell you how much he's earning because he thinks that for some reason the government's going to take his money away. So then he doesn't help you at all. And that was the case for me, where I was in the middle. I didn't, both my parents, they are legal. So it wasn't so much that I had, they weren't here legally. It was more so they simply just did not want to help me because they didn't see the how much education actually matters in terms of becoming successful and even getting the opportunity of collaborating with other people who have different opportunities, right? Because now looking at it from retrospect, I'm like, oh my gosh, college is actually important because in the beginning, I'll be frank, um, I obviously at the current moment I don't have a college degree and I realize you don't need one to be successful. However, man, does it help. Man, do you build friendships? Do you identify mentors that you want to follow from going to these classes? And, you keep rapport with all of these students who are also attending. It just helps you build a community and it really does set you apart, not so much in the workforce, but more so for the quality of life that you want for yourself, right? Because you're more informed. And so, I don't know how we got here, but I wanted to be vulnerable and share that sometimes it's our own people that keep us from achieving success. And I don't want it to be like a doomsday conversation here with you. That's why I want this to be a conversation of hope that you're not alone if you're experiencing all these challenges. Because a lot of the women that I mentor, even though some of them are in their 30s, a lot of them are really young. They're in their late teens, early 20s, and they're like, Karla, I just need help. Like, I just need help with life. And so that's why I have you, Maria, to really guide us through like, you're not alone and you're not crazy. And so when we first started speaking, when I told you that I was interested in doing legal interpretation in the court system, you're like, hey, that is amazing. And we started talking a little bit about lobbyists. So would you mind explaining who lobbyists are, what they do, and how they impact us as just regular civilians?
Yes, but before I get into that topic, I just want to go back a little bit as to when our own um, family, our own people, are an obstacle to achieving higher education. But I also want to encourage us from stepping away from the language of identifying undocumented immigrants as illegals. There's no such thing as an illegal immigrant. That's actually not a crime. We don't want to view these people as criminals. A lot of these people are hard workers. They contribute a lot to our economy. They bring so many good things to this country. And so the proper terminology to use for individuals that are not US born citizens is undocumented individuals. Um, and then moving on to like when you have family members that are becoming obstacles to not just your education, but to your success, you have to be willing to take the challenge and just roll with the resistance and really make the determination, is me getting an education worth the obstacles and the challenges that I'm about to face. Is this really worth me um, sacrificing a lot? Because getting a education, just a bachelor's degree on its own, is going to make you do a lot of sacrifices. And you have to be willing to make that sacrifice, and you have to lay it out. Why are you making these sacrifices? And it's a lot of time and energy, right? And financial as well, especially if you don't qualify for financial aid. Nonetheless, education opens many doors, so many doors. I myself never even thought of the doors that it has opened me. So, yes, it's worth it. But when you have, especially parents that are resistant to you going to college, I think it's important that you take the time to really educate them. You take the time to ask them, what do you want for my future? Where do you want me to be 5, 10 years from now? And like really ask them that, because I feel a lot of the times our parents are so busy with life and just providing that they don't even think like, oh, my kid can actually be an astronaut. My kid can actually be a lawyer, right? And so asking them like, where do you see me? Because when they give you that answer, they're not going to tell you, oh, you know what? I don't want you to be successful. They're going to tell you, I want you to be successful. And that leaves, it opens the door to you telling them, in order for me to be successful, I need your 100 support. If you can't give me your tax form, then I need you to support financially half of my education, because this is where I want to be in 5 years. Are you willing to invest in your child? And these are hard conversations that you're going to have to have.
And in some cases, the answer is no. Like that was
Mhm.
my case. The case for me, it was like, no, you figure it out on your own because during this time, it was like the worst time for my parents to like talk about separation. I'm gonna be so vulnerable here. My parents, thankfully, they never got divorced, but they did go through 2 years of separation trying to find themselves and like, you know, adult stuff. And because they got pregnant of me really young, so they never really got to experience life until we got older. They're like, wait, what is going on, right? And so during this time, COVID also happened. So it was like a lot of just life kind of happened. I'm very thankful that I played out the way that it did, because here was the thing for me. I wasn't willing to make the sacrifice. I was like, no, I'm smart. Apart from, I don't, first of all, I know so many people who think like this. But this is just how it played out for me. I'm like, I'm smart. I know how to communicate well. I know how to sell myself well. I don't need an educate, like I just need to work in sales right now. I'm not gonna get help from my parents, because at the time when I asked them like, hey, I need your 100% support, they were going through their own stuff. And then 2 years later, COVID happened. And then that was like a whole other mess. So I decided for myself, you know what, ni modo, we're gonna do with what we have. I'm just gonna go work in the real estate. I did real estate. I did so many jobs, dentistry. I remember doing, I was even working for what was it, dealerships too. Like I have so much experience under my belt, and every single time I went into for a job interview, I got it. It was easy for me. So I already knew like, okay, I'm good with sales, I'm good with representing myself, I'm good with communication. Okay, let's do something here. And then at the same time I was like, but hold on, yes, I want to be successful financially, but also my dream has always been to be a homemaker. My dream has always been to be a mom. My dream has always been to create a nuclear family. So even though I can, I think that I don't want to. I shouldn't. Because my dream, if I'm being 110% honest with myself, is I want to be a homemaker. Okay. And then from there, I ended up getting married, and then now I'm an entrepreneur, and it's such a blessing because I did get help from my community college on how to even set up all my permits, all my licenses, my LLC, my accountant. I got to learn all these things because of the services that they offer in community colleges, specifically for women of color, which was great because they did in Spanish. So I was like, oh, this is great. This is actually very helpful. But you do have to, how you said, you have to commit to something and say, I need to do this for my success, but also not get butthurt that maybe your parents don't even have enough energy for themselves. What makes us believe that they're going to have an energy for us, right? And that's why we decide to break the cycle. I do not want to ever give that response to my children because my parents know. They know that one thing that really hurt me was the fact that they didn't invest in my education the way that I wanted them to. Having, and this is a part that took me a lot of time to heal, having the finances. Like I said, we weren't my dad was generating good income and having the finances and the resources, he still said no. And so that took me time to kind of heal and be like, okay, accept it, forgive it. It took me years to be able to let go of this um, and move on. So if you're in this position, what I'm trying to say for our listeners, if you're in this position, sometimes life throws things at you and it might just not be your moment just yet. As soon as I got married, my husband's like, if you want to go to school, let's invest in your school because he's prior military. We do have like the GI Bill and we get more benefits in that way. And so maybe my time wasn't to go to school at that time, but it is now. And it's such a blessing to have and to choose to have chosen a partner who sees the value in education and understands that I am also an investment. And so this leads me to say, like, it's just it's so sad that sometimes our community, our parents are even like the our first obstacle, right? But in your case, you chose a different path. So what would you recommend for the ladies who are like, no, I do want to finish school. I do want to do these things. What was the mindset that you needed to grab onto to achieve that? Because I admire it. I admire it.
Um, I'm a Christ believer. And so at one point, I was really struggling with even getting my associate's degree. It took me 8 years to get my associate's degree. So let me just put that out there. Um, Life was happening. I come from a chaotic family. Even though they promote higher education, it's like the support wasn't there. Emotionally, the financial support was there, but emotionally and mentally, just was not there. Aside from other stuff, right? Personal life. Um, but I came to the point where I felt like I was having to fight for what I wanted, right? And so I really started to rely in God. If there's anything that I can give to your listeners and to anyone listening to me, if you put God first and you really trust in Him, He's always going to provide, no matter how hard your life is at that moment. There will be the end of that tunnel, but you have to really believe it, like from, I don't know how to express it, like the
Faith.
bottom of your soul.
Mhm.
You have to believe it that He is there, even though you cannot see Him, and He will. And sometimes we pray to God, and we have to be mindful of how we pray to Him because we pray to Him thinking He's going to give us what we want, but He's not always going to give us what we want because He knows what's best for us, and He at times knows that what we're asking for is actually not anything good for us. And so while we're fighting, struggling with getting God to give us what we want, and He's not giving it to us, we have to go take a break and ask God, where do you want me? What do you want from me? And send me a sign, a clear sign, so I can understand I need to shift. I need to shift my behavior, my thinking, my environment, and God will give it to you. But you have to be willing to accept that.
100%. And it's so interesting that you say that because that's exactly what ended up happening for me and in a different form. Because, ladies, I don't think it was a coincidence that all of a sudden I found out that there's this program for me to help create a business. There's no business owner in my family. And it was the same thing. It was like, okay, being real with myself and being like, God, where do you want me? I don't have, oh, because this was definitely imposter syndrome when I first started, this community and doing all these things. I thought to myself, I don't even have a college degree. What makes me fit to speak to these women, to speak about love and relationships and family? Like, I mean, I came from a girl who was 16 and got pregnant of me with no education. How am I supposed to speak on these subjects? But how you just said, when you rely on God and when you accept your purpose because he always gives us a choice, right? And you sit down with that, he will put people in your life that will help you. And that's for both reaching that education, getting the help that you need to succeed, but also maybe going the other direction and realizing no, actually, education right now for you would be toxic because then I would have probably never met my husband. And I probably would have held on to that resentment of my parents. And so now seeing it from retrospect, I'm so thankful that I centered my life on Christ and on God and my purpose because it allowed me to do the thing that I wanted to do, but just at a different lapse of time. And I love the fact that you said it took me 8 years to complete my associates because like that's how it is for a lot of us, right? Who are on this journey of the firsts. Were you the first in your family to attend university or college?
I am the first in my family.
Like
Mhm.
very, very inspiring and very human of you to share that with us. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know that we got off a little bit, but lobbyists. Would you mind talking about lobbyists, what they do, how do they impact us regular folk? Because you know the 411. You're fighting battles for us that we don't even know are happening.
Yes, so I got introduced into politics and like policies through my union. So I'm a member of AFSCME Local 2620, and we represent all our mental health and social health providers within the state of California. And that's when I got introduced to Lobby Days. So, what is Lobby Days? Lobby Days is actually going to be taking place for us March the 17th, I believe. So, it's right around the corner. And what we do, we go and we speak to our legislators, the people that are, developing the bills that influence our communities, that impact our workforce, our educational system. As you guys have heard, Trump is trying to eliminate the Department of Education. And so us as a group of union members, we go and we lobby for specific bills that are going to impact the workforce for um, mental health workers that work for the state of California. So we work in the prisons, we work in the mental state hospitals, we work for Department of Rehabilitation. Uh, we service the most vulnerable populations in our community. We service those who are severely mentally disabled, who cannot care for themselves or who are a threat to our um, communities. We service those who are in prisons, incarcerated. These people, they go and they work inside these facilities with these high classified criminals. Um, or you have counselors like myself who work with individuals once they transition out of prison and we help them get back to work. So when we talk about budget cuts, we're talking about cutting people like me that help rehabilitate inmates coming out of prison to put them to work. Why would we want to cut that type of funding? And who are these people that are coming out of prison? They're predominantly African American, Hispanic, minority communities coming into our homes, into our towns, and if we don't provide them with the appropriate services, how can we expect them to not go back to prison? How can we expect them to not fall back into their criminal behavior? And so that doesn't only impact my job or my ability to generate income for myself and my family. It actually impacts our whole community because then you guys don't have counselors that are going to rehabilitate these individuals to put them to work. Then we start to having to pay for their social security so that they can get social security, so that they can get general relief. For those of you that don't know what general relief is, um, here in the state of California, we give these individuals about $221 so that they can have enough money to just care for their basic needs, which we know it's also not enough, right? But at least that's how we contribute to rehabilitating them. We give them food stamps so that they can have the ability to purchase food. Um, And so we go in and lobby about these things. We lobby about, I remember in 2019, and I don't remember the bill that we were lobbying, but we were lobbying about our staff being assaulted. So the inmates were throwing feces at them and they were getting sick, from all of this. The state was not reporting it. Our members were being having to lose work, lose vacation, sick time because of these instances. And so we went as a group of individuals and we lobbied for this bill, and rightfully so, it passed. And today our members are more protective. Is it still a good work environment? No, but we always aim to strive for better working conditions. And this is just an example. I work for the mental health, but there's other unions that they focus on having better working conditions for our farm workers, having better working conditions for our janitors, our nurses. Right now, the mental health providers that work for Kaiser, they're on strike. I still believe they're still on strike. Why? Because they're still overworked, right? And so we want to make sure that they have more staff to provide the services that are needed. Right now, we have such high rates of mental health disorders because of the state that our country is in. We're constantly hearing about high schools being shot at by these kids. We're constantly hearing about people dying over overdose. We just have a pandemic of mental health disorders. And so we want to make sure that the professionals that are providing these resources and services to our communities, that they are also well taken care of. And so when we talk about lobbying, we're talking about lobbying for these type of things. As far as education, the parents here listening to me, you guys have power. You have to make sure that you're going to the parent conferences, that you know who the leaders, that you have a communication with the principal, that the curriculum that they're teaching your children is curriculum that you approve of. And if you're not in a agreement to it, that you are part of the team that's build that change for the better of your children. A lot of the times we forget that as parents, you guys have a voice and you are also taxpayers. Therefore, the government needs to listen to you as to how you want your children to be educated, right? um why are we not teaching our children how to save money, how to open a bank account, how to file taxes? Why are we not talking about, when they're in high school, why are we not talking to them about you can purchase a property? Because let me tell you something, if you go to Palos Verdes, if you go to Beverly Hills, trust and believe, those kids, they're having those conversations. They're talking to them about going to Harvard. That's what they're training them for. Why are our communities and our school districts not teaching that to our children? Because we're not educated and we're not involved politically to make those changes.
And I think in part of all of that, by the way, period, period. And secondly, I think one of the reasons too is because a lot of us might not even know where to start, I think, and a lot of us are just surviving. What do I mean by this? I mean, in our own personal conversations apart from the camera, we also talk about this, like who benefits from us running without without our heads? Like who benefits from us just going from paycheck to paycheck, right? Who benefits from this? People who understand the way that the system works, and for us who are first generation, second generation, and we have no idea what the heck is going on, how do we even start? That would be my question, because one thing that my husband and I, when we talk, we see a lot of the laws that are being passed by the state of California, and we're like, wait, how can we like object to this? My husband is a first responder, so I heard that he read the other day that you can't protect yourself or defend yourself using, I guess, not lethal force. Even if someone is in your household, you have to find a way to run. And even if there's not a way to run, you still can't use lethal force. That law was just passed. And again, since my husband's a first responder, he's always up to date with laws. And I'm like, how can we even vote? I don't even know how to keep up with our own state, my own state of California. So like what are the steps for us to do, Maria? Because I'm kind of even questioning like my own knowledge. Like I don't even know. Would you mind sharing with us? Like I'm new to all of this lingo, so please feel free to correct me because I'm not too sure all of the terminology.
Yes, so you guys want to start with your councilman. Every single here in the state of California, I don't know about the other states, but I'm gonna talk about California because that's where I reside. Every single county has, a mayor. We have our councilmen. You can look them up and you can make phone calls to them, letting them know, hey, this bill is not working here. What are you gonna do to change it? How can we implement change, or how can we get rid of this bill? Right now that our Department of Education is at stake, all of us should be calling our councilmen, telling them we want to keep our Department of Education. I know that they just had a meeting or something just went through where Trump was not able to get rid of it. But trust and believe they're going to come back and they're going to challenge it because they don't want us to be educated. We here, the Hispanics in the state of California, are the majority, but yet we only have one person that represents us, which is Alex Padilla at the Senate. Why do we only have one person? That is alarming. And in the other states too. The fact that we only have one Hispanic is alarming. And it's not in their benefit for us to gain education and for us to learn that we do have power, that we can talk to our councilmen, our mayors. Those people work for us, and we need to start changing our mentality that they work for us. We elected them. And for those of us that are undocumented or that don't have citizenship here, you can still unite and work with the nonprofit organizations, work with entities that do support immigrants because you also have a voice here. For those that are parents of U.S. citizen children, make sure that your children are registered to vote and that they become aware of how to vote for the different leaders that we have in power. Make sure that you tell your children like it's important for you to vote. We have to ensure that our youth is registered to vote. That's where we start. Educating our children, making sure that they register to vote when they can, and making those phone calls. Is it going to take time? It takes a lot of time. Are you going to see change right away? Nope, you're not. Many times you're going to come home disappointed, but you're going to start to learn little by little. I still don't know a lot, to be honest with you. I've only been really dived in for the past 2 years, and I'm still having to learn a lot. But the more you do it, the more you empower yourself, the more you gain knowledge, and the more you start to build connections with people. One time I was coming from Sacramento, and I happened to sit right next to Villaraigosa. Never did I think I was gonna sit next to Villaraigosa. And I was like telling myself like, I want to talk to him, but I don't know how to talk to him. And I just was telling myself, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Get comfortable with the uncomfortable. I don't even know how I started the conversation with Villaraigosa, but bottom line, I started talking to him and I saw him like a normal person. And then he just started telling me how he started working with SCIU and how he comes from immigrant parents and how he became a leader in our community. Um, you want to talk to those people. They're regular people like you and I.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm currently going through an era where all of these things now matter. I'm gonna have an investment that all of these things are now I care about a lot more than maybe what I used to. And so I'm so glad and thankful that we got to meet in that our roads cross because now I know that I have someone that I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Do you know anything about this? Because this is the point of building community, ladies. The whole takeaway message that I want all of you to take from this is sometimes, unfortunately, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And then you get to learn how they think because you're right, we need to upgrade our mindset on things. It's so much better and it's so much easier when you already have the knowledge that you do, but then you link up with someone who knows maybe a little bit more or knows how to talk themselves into into spaces that you're like, whoa, I never would have thought that I would be here in this room, but I'm here. Working together is always better. And but we go to the same question or to the same situation where it's like, how can we even get out of survival? How can our community get out of survival apart? Like, when do they even find the time to invest into learning to of these things? I will be honest with you, Maria. I didn't even get the chance to learn about my passions and who I was and self-discovery until after I got married. And it wasn't after not only was it after I got married, but after this person didn't challenge me to be doing all the things. Like, but not everybody is in my situation. So what do you think is a solution to helping our own community as to setting apart time, maybe deleting TikTok, maybe deleting Instagram, to educate themselves? Because you can do the same thing that you're doing on TikTok or Instagram, but instead maybe go to different websites and read about different people. What would be your recommendation? How do we start?
By being willing to share the resources that you know. You start there by always being conscientious that when you come across a young Latino, Latina, um, or anyone within our community, that you see that they're just lost, that you take the time to just throw your little seed in there and that you give them access to you so that whenever they need or whenever they're ready, because you know, sometimes people come and they're just not ready. They're not in that space. They're still trying to figure out, how do I get out of this survival mode? But they will keep your number or they will keep your contact information. And when they're ready, they might just call you to make that transition. And just also being able to accept the fact that not everyone is ready for this knowledge, because having to learn about policies, having to access higher education, being able to be successful in life, it requires dedication, it requires sacrifice, it requires investing time and money. And if you're not ready to do that, then you're just not going to get what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I agree. And recently I moved to Napa. I was telling you this. I recently moved to Napa and I didn't realize the disconnect because in San Diego, everybody's cool with everybody. There's a really strong Latino community there and like Mexicans, Venezuelans, Peruvians, like all the things. I miss it. I miss it a lot. But here in Napa, it's very different. There's a lot of farm farm workers and
Mhm.
like there's a lot of, unfortunately, I see a lot of segregation. When I got here I was like, Mi gente, what is going on? Like, you are worthy of being here. Like, and it was so, I remember the first weeks being here, I was heartbroken because I got to see that even not being able to speak English well would set them off, would set these people down. And I'm very thankful that am able to translate. And so whenever I get the opportunity to, I always translate. And it came, sometimes, well, at this time, I was like, I might even offer like English lessons. And then I did more research and I was like, oh, wait, there's a bunch of corporations and people offering English classes. Why are the classrooms empty? Or why isn't what's going on? And so I think a lot of it has to do still with the mindset. I think you're right. A lot of people are not yet ready, and it's having that discernment to know like when someone is ready to even receive this information, but also not give up on your own community. It breaks my heart sometimes because I see the disconnect um between even like just people who speak English and people who don't speak English. It's so sad to see that disconnect of not understanding each other from both sides. And it really breaks my heart. And I really do think if I end up staying in Napa, I'm probably going to be like a detective or a journalist here and being like, why are these things happening? Because like it or not, here, there's a lot of vineyards. I don't know if have you been to Napa? There's a lot of vineyards here and there's a lot of farm workers here. And I know, I don't know if I can say the things that I know that I see behind the scenes because, again, my husband's first responder. And so we get the intel on a lot of things. And I'm like, why isn't anybody talking about this, doing journalism on this? And a lot of the times it's because these people who get affected in the crossfire of these policies or the lack of implementations of policies, they're too scared to even speak up. They're scared. They're terrified. And it really breaks my heart because there's a lot of things like that happen here. Human sex trafficking. Like we know unfortunately that there's some places that I had no idea that existed until I did. Again, I'm 100% a chismosa. I'm on everybody's business because I want to know who's around me, what my neighbors are doing. And so I didn't know that there's still places that are not massage parlors that they're not only do they give you massages, but they give men happily ever afters, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
Because a lot of these people here who are farm workers, yeah, and you know how you said that they're undocumented. Well, put them in a barn, and what are we gonna do? We're gonna multiply. And so then I realized, well, not realized, but being the chismosa that I am, I'm like always wanting to know more. Unfortunately, these children end up getting sent to these massage parlors and end up giving people happily ever afters. And it's
Hmm.
like it breaks my heart. I would have never known of this happening unless I would have had someone who giving me this intel. But even I, as just like a regular civilian, how can I even help my community when I don't I don't even know where to start? Because now that my kind of like this blindfold has been removed from my eyes, it's like I can't unsee it. I can't unsee it. And these people who run these things have a lot of power. They have a lot of power, not only in the city of Napa, but they have a lot of power like in the higher ups in politics. And it's so sad. It's just disheartening. It's really sad. And so that's why I'm asking you these questions as to like, where do we start? And it is as small as even just caring, because now I care and I can't unsee what I've seen, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think again, everything goes back to educating ourselves and figuring out how we can contribute to the issues that we're trying to tackle. But our Hispanic community, we just have so many, I don't want to say issues, but just so many components that really just oppress us. And that's through generational oppression. Many of our families have experienced post-traumatic stress disorder, and it goes on to the next generation and the next generation. We have depression, anxiety, because of all the abuse that we have experienced through the generations, right? And so when we start to really like take off that blindfold and we start to see these things where we just want to help the world and we want to help our community, one thing that I just want to say, like, don't overwhelm yourself and don't take that burden on you, because you're only one person and you can only do so much, right? It's like, what can I do? Identify what you could do. Where you see yourself helping. What is your interest? And I'm going to use you as an example, Karla, because you just gave us your example. But figuring out who your councilman is in that area, asking them, are they familiar with that situation that's going on? And if they are, what are they doing to address the issue? Um, how can you help to address the issue? Is there anything that they need help with? Sometimes, they need help with writing the bills or informing people on the resources that they have available in the communities. Um, the departments that they have set in place for the children and the youth that are being exposed to such things, right? And so little by little, you'll start to find the information that you're seeking for to be able to help your community. But yeah, there's just a lot in I guess the way that we can start is starting
I
with us, because we are part of that.
I
And
agree. Sorry.
it's okay. And what I mean by starting with us, I mean by getting educated, not to become rich, but to gain the knowledge that you need to be able to have access to these circles and communicate with these individuals. the education is going to give you the how do you say it? The confidence. It's going to give you the confidence to speak to these important people. And you're going to be able to feel like, hey, I do belong in these circles, even though I'm the only one of color, or I'm probably like the fifth person that I see of color here, but I belong. I I know what I'm talking about. And not only do I know, I've experienced it. I live it, and so that's what education is going to give you. It's going to give you the confidence, the knowledge, and access to these circles. Two, work on your mental and spiritual stability, because you cannot give to your community or to anyone anything if mentally you're not right and if spiritually you're not 100%. You have to be able to be 100%, not 100% because we're never at 100%, but you have to be stable, good enough to be able to give that wealth of knowledge that you have and that good energy to your community.
Absolutely. And, to finish off, I feel like our conversation went, it's so good. But I want to finish off our conversation on maybe talking about some points that our community kind of battles with. And um, I'm sure that there's a lot of people who can relate to this, like some of the things that we maybe had to let go of that is very seen as very normal in our community, meaning like something that's very normal, how I just said that maybe praising men a little bit more than women, or having women expect them to do everything around the house and to be the organizer of things. And how do you see how, because I think you're able to see kind of both sides, people who have figured out the system and people who are still in it and a little bit stuck in it. What do you see the differences in culture dynamics and in family dynamics that people who we would consider successful do versus what our community still needs to work on? Does this make sense? I don't know if I need to re-explain.
I'm gonna try to answer your question and see if and you just cut me off if I'm not answering it.
Yeah, like what's the difference between people who have quote unquote figured it out already and are extremely successful versus people in our community that are still stuck? Like, what is the disconnect of mindset here?
I think a lot of the times we just focus on what we do not have, and we use those um obstacles sometimes as excuses because we're still afraid to face the challenge. Because it's not easy. I was not easy for me to be in front of lobbyists or to advocate for 550 counselors. Like I didn't even get training for that. It just happened. But throughout life, like I've been put in situations where I gained that knowledge, but it's always been scary. The road to where I'm at now, it has been scary. I've had to learn a lot. I've had fallen a lot of times. I've failed many times, but I've turned my mindset and I've used it where, okay, what did God want me to learn from this? Was it to build my character? Was it to be a better team player? Was it to be more humble? Right? So changing your mind um thought process as to, regardless of what situation you're going through, always taking it back, like, where does God want you? What does he want from you? Because he might not want you to be successful at that point, but he wants you to humble down, you know? Or maybe you are successful, but because you think, oh, I have a master's degree or I have a PhD, and you just think you're like, I don't know if I can cuss here, but if you're the shit, and it's like, and really you're not. You just have a degree. You're just an expert in one subject, right? And so God is gonna use your life and situations to sometimes humble you down, even if you quote unquote think you're successful. I don't know if I answer your question.
No, 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 you did. You did. And I think that that's very helpful to everybody who is listening. And I'm so thankful to have you on here. Is there anything else that you'd like to discuss before we hit that 1 hour mark? I'm just so thankful that we got you in here. And I think we're going to need a part two because we just scratched the surface of this entire conversation. So, is there anything else you'd like to share with us, motivate us, inspire us before we close out?
I just want to say to everyone listening to us, just remember that we all have um that we all struggle in life. We all have come from different backgrounds, whether you're Hispanic, African American, white, we all share the same struggles in one way or another, right? We all have different obstacles, but when you start to become real with yourself and you internally just really ask yourself what you want, where you want to be, and you give that to God, and you're always in communication with God, He will provide everything that you need, the people, the resources, the money, everything that you want. If you trust in God, everything is possible.
I love that. And it is very, very true. You have two ladies here who stand by that, that if you believe and if you move and walk in faith, everything that you need will come to you. And you'll be like, oh my goodness, God is definitely real because without him, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I am doing. So, with that being said, ladies, I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much, Maria, for being here.
Thank you.
Bye bye.